So we perform weekly, monthly, annual, quarterly, biannually. So our weekly maintenance on the engine specifically is primarily a lot of bracing. I'm not sure if you've been down to the engine room, but everything, it operates off of linkages, and so there's just a lot of moving parts that requires a lot of bracing. So that's mostly it for the engines, and then most of our annual maintenance is performed when the boats go into layup every year in January, and at that time we will often open up the engines, inspect the pistons, piston rings, etc. And there's a lot more that goes on, but that's where large maintenance is performed. Yes, ma'am. So we all work 12-hour shifts. My shift is 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So somebody is very kindly sitting down there for me. But yes, so then when I get off at 11, there's another engineer and oiler that come on duty until I get back the next morning. Yes, sir. Yes, you can. You can get down there from the engine room bar, and there's a door directly down to the engine room. Yes, sir. Yes. So, on pretty much every ship, the steering is, so there's two answers. I control the speed of the wheel. The pilot house has no control over the speed. The only control is the throttle lever that is down in the engine room that I'm physically adjusting. But my order is given from the pilot house by means of an engine order telegraph, which is just a panel with buttons, and they'll push, if they want me to go full steam ahead, they will push the full ahead button. It will ring a bell down in the engine room. I will acknowledge it, and I will adjust the speed as necessary. But for the Z drives, I start them up from the engine room, and I'm able to, I have ultimate control of them down there, but I give them control up in the pilot house. So while we're underway, they can adjust the speed, adjust the angle of the props. But at any given time, I can take back control of the Z drives, and that's for emergency purposes. Yes, sir. Yes, they can. He's asking their depth, how far. So I would say that this is going to be estimation, but we have pulled one out recently, so I've seen it. Probably around 6 feet down. No, they're not. They're fixed pitch. But the props themselves are almost about 6 feet themselves in height. Yes, sir. So all I do in the engine room is I will close down on that throttle, and that is minimizing the amount of steam that is emitted to the engines. Now, if we are going slower for longer periods of time, that's less steam needed, and so the engineer in the fire room will often adjust their set point to a lower pressure because we're not needing as much steam pressure. Yes, ma'am.
Are your fellow engineers also women?
We do have one other woman engineer. She works in the fire room, but yes, just her. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you hope this takes you?
So I guess my immediate goal right now is to upgrade my license to second engineer, and that's solely done by sea time. So just the number of days that I sail on the way. But in the long run, I would like to at least obtain my first engineer's license in engineering in some form or another. I do really love the maritime industry and all that it has to offer. There's plenty of opportunity out there, especially in the engineering side of things. So whether it's underway on the ship or onshore as a navarre or something, just in some form or another, yes.
Okay. One more question, and then we're going to go ahead and close this down. Miss Sarah, you stand up watch just like everybody else. Can you give us an idea of just a day in Sarah's life as an engineer downstairs? Like, can you give an idea of what you do on your shift piece?
Sure. So when I first show up, we are, for the most part, in port. And so the first thing I do is I perform a turnover with the previous watch engineer. So he gives me a rundown of everything that went on while he was on watch, anything that he is currently in the process of doing. For example, if he were transferring water or he were making water with our reverse osmosis unit, he would let me know that that's ongoing and that I will be responsible for shutting him down. And then just let me know if anything you notice that out of the ordinary from the night before, something to look out for. If he has any requests that I do during the day. So then I stand watch with an oiler, and she performs rounds every other hour. And so right about the time we get there, she'll do her first round. And I kind of go around and do my own round of sorts, just to kind of get a feel for what's going on, see what's online, if the engineer had missed something, just for my own awareness. And then she's usually done with her round about that time, and I look over all the readings that she's gotten and verify that everything is within range, temperatures, pressures, etc. And then we have a software that all of our logs are entered into, that I will fill that out. Then during the day, if we're still in port and I have time, that's when I'll perform a lot of our maintenance, whether that's just a new project that came up the night before, or if it's just one of our routine things that I have time to do, then I'll do that. And that's maybe the greasing, or I test our batteries. We change strainers, and just there's an assortment of things. And then usually around that time, it'll be ready to start up the plant. So I begin warming up the plant, because the steam is shut off to the engines while we are in port. While the steam is still circulating and we have the boiler running, the engines haven't seen steam since the night before. So it is like kind of a long process to warm things up. And so I usually start about an hour and a half to 2 hours prior to departure. And then, so start out with draining out the system. The steam that has been sitting in the system and has condensed into water, I drain a lot of it out. And then it's a matter of putting the equipment back on, our pumps that transfer our condensate back to the boiler and such. And so I get things running, and then I will start rolling the wheel. I call the pilot house ahead of time, ask them how we are tied up and which way they prefer that I roll the wheel, so that I'm not moving the boat when I do it. So we'll roll the wheel. We like to have it rolling for about 45 minutes before we leave. And then I will start up our Z drives. I will put them on. I will close the breakers for that. I will turn them on, and then the pilot house and myself will perform a series of tests. We test all of our steering. We test the rudders. I test it in emergency mode down in the engine room. Given that there were an emergency, we are sure that I would be able to control and operate the steering. They do the exact same thing. And then we also test the Z drives. I test and verify that I can operate them, operate the thrust, and then they will do the same. And then when we are underway, for the most part, that's just a lot of monitoring. Unless something were to arise, there's not much going on. It's really just making sure everything's staying within range. The oiler on watch is still going around and doing rounds, and I will monitor the ratings that she's getting. And then that usually kind of wraps up my night. And the next watch will come and I will have my turnover with them. So pretty much it.
Thank you so very much. Man, that's a lot of responsibility. All right, everybody, unless there are any more questions, let's give one more round of applause for Miss Sarah. Thank you so very much. Of course, if you have any more questions, again, you can visit her downstairs in the engine room on her watch, and there's always another watch down there when she's not there. For those of you that were curious how again to get down there, if you go through the starboard side through the engine room bar, as soon as you walk in that door, right to your right-hand side is another door. That is the door Miss Sarah is starting out. You can go down directly to the engine room, and then we will have an answer to your questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. We will have our next ribbon chat tomorrow. But again, if you got any questions for me, or if you got any questions for Miss Sarah, by all means, grab a cup of coffee, come find us, and we'll have a chat. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.